300,000 years is about how long anatomically modern humans have been around. If we were to take an infant from 300,000 years ago and drop them into today's world, it's very unlikely that we would be able to tell a difference between them and us today. They would learn language the same way that we learn it, and they would assimilate into culture and society the same way that we do. And 300,000 years is a very long period of time. It took that amount of time for us to go from the hunter-gatherers that we were to now having the average person go and shop at a supermarket to get their food. Even though, when you look at it from a cosmic timescale, and I'm sure many of you have seen those graphs that show the entire age of the Earth all the way up from its beginning to today, that highlights just how recent we are, such as this one right here, which shows 7 million years being the most recent time, when really us being only 200 to 300,000 years old, the line would actually be closer to about here on that graph. From this point of view, 300,000 years isn't really that long of a period of time, and in some ways it's really not, but in other ways it still absolutely is. That's 15,000 human generations. Most of us will only be alive for maybe 3 or 4 of those. Now, whether or not 300,000 years really is a long period of time, one thing a lot of people can agree on is that ever since the Industrial Revolution, since about 200 to 300 years ago, we have very quickly made a lot of technological progress. Hell, we even went from the Wright brothers in 1903 being able to just fly a plane for the first time ever to 1969 having us have the first moon landing where people got out and walked around and then flew home safely. That was 66 years. That was a very short amount of time and incredibly rapid technological progress. And this is something that gets a lot of credit, but when you really start to think about it, probably doesn't get nearly the amount of discussion or credit that it deserves. In fact, it's very, very strange that we aren't just open-mouthed, slack-jawed, dumbfounded by everything that is around us 24/7 all of the time. I mean, the fact that the average American can go to the store and purchase a carton of eggs and is also able to purchase an iPhone or a Samsung, whatever, and can have access to the entire world's information at any time that they wish is something that a lot of people point out and is like, that's crazy, but it is absolutely insane, and I don't think any of us are even close to capable of producing the type of reaction that something like that would deserve. But even though I don't think that that gets enough discussion, it at least gets some discussion and is something that is pointed out from time to time. Now, something that I don't often see get a lot of recognition or discussion is thinking about human experience or our human timeline in a more horizontal sense. And what I mean by that is often when we have discussions about something like the Industrial Revolution, we talk about how it's only been about 200 to 300 years since then, and that in that amount of time, in those 200 to 300 years, we have had incredibly rapid technological advancement, which is true. That is absolutely true. But 8.25 billion people are alive today. During the recording of this video on October 28th, 2025, we have a population of 8.25 billion people. And what that means is that every single day, 8.25 billion days are lived. That is 8.25 billion unique experiences, perspectives, thoughts, emotions, completely different and distinct days that are lived every single day. Now, how long is that? Well, that's about 23 million years, or about 75 times the entire length of the history of humankind. I'll say that again, 75 times the entire length of anatomically modern humans are lived every single day. And in my opinion, I just feel like this isn't something that is recognized enough or talked about enough. I'll put it in a different perspective, a little bit easier to digest, because 22 million or 23 million years is a very, very long period of time. Now, when you go onto YouTube, a lot of videos you see, most of them in fact, will probably have over 100,000 views. Probably not this one. But a lot of them have over 100,000 views. Now, if we assume that the average watch time on that video is 5 minutes, then 500,000 minutes have been spent watching that video. And that is roughly 347 days, or nearly a year. If it goes to 6 minutes, then it surpasses an entire year. And then there are no official numbers, but it seems, based off estimates, that tens of thousands of videos get over 100,000 views every single day. And I'll even focus in on just a single YouTuber, not even the biggest one, but a big one, Markiplier. I know in one of his videos, I don't remember which one, I'm terribly sorry, but he talks about how he has 5.7 thousand videos on his channel right now. And he recognizes that every single time he uploads a new video, that is somebody's favorite video. And he keeps that in mind to tell himself that, like, while we might see something and we watch it in 10 minutes and then we forget about it after that, and it's not that big of a deal, to somebody, every single time he hits that upload button, that is a big deal to them. Which makes sense when you think about it. Markiplier is basically guaranteed to get over 1 million views every single time he uploads a video, and with only 5.7 thousand videos on his channel, it's almost certainly the case that it's going to not only just be one person's, but multiple people's favorite video of his, if not just favorite video on the platform in general. And it's also worth pointing out that Markiplier has quite nearly 23 billion views on his channel alone, which, if we assume, even if it's only a minute average watch time per view, that would be about 44 to 45,000 years. And likely that number is closer to 5 minutes average watch time per view, and that would be about 220,000 years spent just watching Markiplier. That is over 2/3 the entire history of anatomically modern humans spent just watching Markiplier. That's crazy. And looking at the human population or YouTube video view counts through this lens is, while it is an interesting thing to look at just in terms of numbers and how much time truly is spent on this, while those figures alone, they might seem like they are relatively meaningless and just an interesting thing to point out, the fact that we have 8 billion people on this planet, meaning 8.25 billion days lived every single day, has a lot more implication beyond that that's worth thinking about and considering. For example, let's go back to the 1600s when the population was around 550 million. Well, and just to name two people, we had Isaac Newton and we had Shakespeare. And of course, there were other notable people in the 1600s. These are just two of the most popular. And during that time, since there were only 550 million people alive, that means that, statistically speaking, we could only expect to have about 15 times that many Isaac Newtons right now. We can only expect to have 15 Isaac Newtons and to have 15 Shakespeares alive doing their thing right now. And not only that, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. Imagine if Isaac Newton was born today and he didn't have to invent calculus or study optics or come up with a theory of gravity in classical physics. Imagine he already had access to all of that, but also significantly more, such as Einstein's theory of relativity or whatever it might be. He would be able to get so much more accomplished today because we already are standing on the shoulders of people like Isaac Newton that made those discoveries for us. Not to mention, we have far more access to information than anybody ever in history has ever had, just full stop. It is called the information age after all, for very good reason. And this applies to everybody else in history too. We can only expect to have many times more people alive right now that are at the same level or beyond people in history. Even in 1920, the population was only about 2 billion people. We should have about 4 times the amount of massive brain power, such as Einstein or whoever else it might be, alive doing their thing right now. And that does beg the question then, like, where are they all then? How come we don't seem to have people like Einstein or Isaac Newton alive right now doing their thing, or at least not know about them? And it seems that one of the reasons is that we don't seem to put nearly as much emphasis or cultural value on people who are like Einstein that make scientific progress. while we seem to otherwise put value on other people such as, I don't know, Sam Altman or Elon Musk, who are kind of seen as the heads of people that are at the pinnacle or the cutting edge of current technological progress, even though you can make the argument that these people are more like business people rather than actual scientists making groundbreaking discoveries. These people almost definitely are still out there making these discoveries and progressing humanity forward. They just aren't getting a lot of the recognition that they most definitely deserve. And maybe I'll make a video on that in the future, highlighting some people who should be just as famous as Einstein or even Isaac Newton was. They were both celebrities in their day, and that we aren't talking about enough today. And I just wanted to come on here and talk about some of these ideas, and I hope that you have found them as fascinating and interesting as I know I do. I mean, the fact that we live 23 million years every single day is just mind-blowing to me. 23 million years ago, we looked like this. We were proconsuls. We were just monkeys. That's what we looked like. And then the fact that every 2 years we collectively as humans live longer than the entire age of the universe is also just as insane, if not more insane. And because of this, we should be extremely excited, because that means that we have 1 in a billion people on this planet right now. And they're out there, and they're doing their thing. And they have access to far more information than anybody else in history has. And based off of history, we know just the sorts of things that incredibly genius people can come up with. And so I think we have a lot of exciting things headed our way. And I think we have a lot of reason to be very, very excited and optimistic about the future, just through sheer numbers alone. Of course, it comes with its risks, but I'm not using this video to highlight that right now. I want to focus on the positive, because it really is, when you think about it, just mind-blowingly large and mind-blowingly exciting. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I really appreciate you, and have a great day. Thank you.